Welcome to IROC Business with Confidence, the podcast where passion meets profit without the pressure of a big price tag. I'm your host, Corey Fonville Foster, transformational speaker, certified business coach, trainer, and the CEO behind the mic. In every episode, we dive deep into the heart of entrepreneurship, bringing you stories, strategies, and tips to monetize your passions while maintaining your budget. Whether you're a budding entrepreneur or looking to scale up, this is your go-to resource for affordable sales and marketing strategies. Join us as we interview small business experts from around the globe, sharing their journeys, challenges, and the solutions that propelled them to success. IROC Business with Confidence podcast is here to demystify the process of running a successful business on a budget. Get ready to transform your entrepreneurial dreams into reality, one episode at a time. Hello guys, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Corey Fonville Foster, CEO of IROC Marketable Business Solutions. I'm so excited today to be bringing on an amazing guest. Like I tell you guys all the time, I am not an expert of everything, and where I fall short is definitely in the realm of nonprofit. So today's guest is going to be talking to us about how to start a nonprofit, the things we need to know to get funding, and I'm sure she's going to drop some amazing gems outside of that as well. So today's guest is Miss Tiffany Allen. She is the CEO of Boss on a Budget, a small firm that teaches communities to form strong nonprofits and obtain funding. Her passion is working with Black-led nonprofits and other new and community-led nonprofits and purpose-driven businesses, teaching them to use their skills and talents to get funding. She is the creator of the Activate Your Purpose and Profit Society, an online membership community for nonprofit founders to help them get funding. She manages an online network of over 15,000 people from across the world who are seeking grant writing assistance. Tiffany helps leaders of new and small nonprofit founders show up with confidence so they can successfully grow their organizations and serve their communities. Let's go ahead and welcome Miss Tiffany Allen. Hello.
Hi, Corey. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited. Look, we got it together, guys. You guys know when you're recording a podcast, anything can happen. And Tiffany's like, girl, we got to try that again. I'm like, let's do it. So we are recording.
No worries.
Yes, we are recording. Look, she's like, I'm excited again. So round 2, but we're going to have a good time. I'm excited, honestly, about this conversation because people always come to me because I work with coaches and consultants, and they're like, I have this passion, I have this cause near and dear to my heart, but I don't know where to start. And I'm like, girl, your guess is as good as mine. When it comes to nonprofits, like, I can help you market, but that startup is not for me. So we're going to kind of dive into a few layers of what it is to have a nonprofit and how they can, run their businesses effectively to get and be able to support the community they're trying to reach. But before we dive into that, I want to give you an opportunity to let us know what inspired you to start Boss on a Budget and work with the nonprofit sector.
Sure. So what inspired me was failure. So my ex was starting a nonprofit. He was launching, and I was helping with the back end, the administrative stuff, the paperwork. And I thought I knew what I was doing because I'm a social worker and I've been working in the nonprofit field my whole career. But I started getting letters from the IRS. I started getting letters from the state. I was not on top of stuff like I thought I was. It was just a lot of work. And I was also balancing a full-time job. So I realized, like, watching his journey and him, like, bootstrap and literally pay for everything, how hard it was to find good information about what do you do in order to scale, because it's not sustainable to pay for everything out of your pocket. So how do you grow when you're literally starting from ground zero? And so I had worked with National Foundations in my career anyway. I knew about grant writing. So I was like, well, let me teach people how to do grant writing from my perspective, like ground up. Because sometimes it's hard to get grant funding when you're in the very beginning. So I taught people strategies to do that. But I realized that people can't write grants well because it starts with the nonprofit club. And that's what got me into nonprofit startup and teaching from my experience what it was like to launch literally when you were starting to idea. So now I just go on YouTube and I teach from my experience. And I relate to people and I also encourage them.
I love that. And I think a lot of people think you have to know it all when you get started. But like you said, you were like, hey, I got this skill. I know how to do a little bit of grant writing. I have this, opportunity. Let me marry those together. And now you're able to support
Mm-hmm.
thousands of people from all across the world. So because you have worked with tons of nonprofit
Mm-hmm.
startup individuals, what are some of the common challenges that you're seeing them face, especially in those first like 90 days?
The two things that come up all the time is people and money. So I'm gonna break that down a little bit. So people, so nonprofit founders don't realize you cannot own a nonprofit. It is not your business. It is your idea, it's your vision, but you don't legally have any rights to it. It's a public organization. And so you have to have a board of directors. And that's where people get really um, they get nervous about that because they don't want to relinquish control to a group of people they may not trust. But the reality is, if you do not have a strong team to launch, it's going to take you way longer and you're not going to be able to grow the way you need to grow. And the reality is also, it's required. You have to have a board. So that's the first thing. People just don't understand that they have to engage a board and that people aren't just going to join you and be ready to work. Like you have to develop relationships with them. You have to encourage them. You have to lead them on this journey. It doesn't just fall into place. That is one of the biggest challenges in nonprofit startup. The other thing is money. So people assume that when you get 501c3 status, that somehow this magic key unlocks everything and money just starts flying from the sky. And it doesn't. You have to actually work for money just like you would in any other business. And you have to get really clear on what your message is and understand who your donors and your funders are and target them and market to them like you would any other business. So it takes people a while to get that. And once they get that, they get there. But it does take some education to get people with the right mindset.
Okay, makes sense. So let's talk a little bit more about the board, because I think some people are like, okay, I get I have to have a board, but who's on there? And a lot of times people are like, do they pay me? Do I pay them? How does that work? So can you break down a little bit more about like who is on a nonprofit board? Is there specific people, and how does that relationship work?
So the great thing about starting from the beginning is you can create the board that you want. And I do not recommend you have family and friends on your board because that's where people naturally go. They go to their sister, their mom, their cousin. And then when you have to make really key decisions, because this is literally a business, then people's feelings get hurt. Or when they're not showing up to the meetings and they're not committed, you're upset because you think it's a slight against you when it's really, they're not really engaged in the mission. You want people who care about this mission, who are fired up about this mission, who have already probably done some work and are really passionate about it and don't mind coming together with a group of people to push this idea forward. Remember that you are a startup, so you need that startup energy. You don't need people who don't want to work. So you also need people who are strategic thinkers, but also are ready to get their hands dirty and do some of the work and help you fill out paperwork and help you ask for money. A lot of people don't realize that the board is responsible for the financial health of the organization. So they are responsible for making sure money comes in, just like the founder. But sometimes the founder shoulders all of that weight, and that's not right. So you want to recruit people who have a strategic vision, but also who are worker bees. And you want people who have some kind of experience in nonprofit management too, or who have some background in serving on a nonprofit board. You want that as well. And the last thing I'll say, because I could go all day on this, honestly, but you have to remember that you have to make decisions as a group. So what are the personalities you want in the room? Are there certain dominant personalities that will derail everything that you're trying to do? Are people actually in line with your mission? Do they see it the same way you see it? Are they going to go in the same direction you want to go? So you actually have to vet people. You have to be careful and considerate about who you choose to be on your board. So those are some things I would think about. And like I said, it's so much to it, but just be thoughtful about it.
Yeah, I think you gave really great advice because I've been asked to sit on boards in the past, and I'm like, well, what exactly would you want me to do? Like, and then they're like, well, if you sit on the board, we want you to bring in $5,000. Well, how do I do that? And I'm always
Mhm.
confused. I'm like, okay, I like to, I don't mind helping and contributing, but I need to know what is expected of me. And I think that sometimes they don't necessarily have when they're starting up, they don't have all that information. And I'm like, well, if I'm gonna give my time, I need to know how I'm going to be
Right,
utilized because they're like, I'm like, am I making flyers for you, or am I just going out here knocking door to door? Am I just in
right.
meetings? How many
Mm,
meetings? So I love that you kind of talked about at the beginning, kind of setting up, expectations, making sure everybody is clear on the mission and the vision of the company. And I
mhm,
agree, family and friends, they'll say
mm,
yes in the beginning, and then you're like, okay, we ready to start the agenda. They not showing up. They're coming
mhm.
late. They're not serious, and they just may not have the expertise to really give you what you need to grow. So
That's
I
right.
think that that was all point right on point. Um, you mentioned one of the challenges outside of having that board would be funding, and I know
Mhm.
that that is a huge thing that people come to me saying like, all right, I want to do this programming, I have the audience, but I don't have any funds to actually facilitate what I'm trying to accomplish.
Mhm.
So are people still flyering the community? Are they calling, and asking for money from people? How are people these days able to operate their nonprofits?
So, established nonprofits, those who are financially healthy, diversify their income streams. And it really does depend on the type of work you do because a nonprofit that like provides food in the community is way different than a nonprofit that's like a social justice nonprofit or doing child welfare with foster care and adoption. So, like your donor mix or your funder mix will look differently depending on what you do, but there's usually a mix, right? So, there's a mix of individual donations. Most nonprofits get their money from donations. A lot of people think most nonprofits get their money from grants. But if you look at the numbers, minus, public funding, most of their money comes from individuals. And then, there's some corporate sponsorship in there that people really don't leverage. That's an untapped area, engaging corporations. And then there's grants. So there could be government grants, they could be private foundation grants, public foundation grants. There's a lot of opportunity out there. I think with COVID, a lot of people started to lean more into digital fundraising and online fundraising, whereas in the nonprofit space, they were a little scared to do that before, but they're doing it so much more now. And you can't help it. Like with the rise of GoFundMe and like crowdfunding, all that kind of thing, people are trying to leverage that same movement and that momentum in the nonprofit space.
Wow, I like that because I'm always wondering. I'm like, okay, I get what you're trying to do, but when you have no money, it's like, okay, now what? Because it really
Mhm.
halts all your progress. And so I love that you talked about, not being afraid to get into the digital market. Because I went a couple years ago to a nonprofit kind of informative session. I was considering maybe even starting one of my own, and the lady was like,
Mhm.
"Yeah, we're gonna get a cold list and we're gonna call them." And I was like, "We're gonna do what? We're gonna call them?" And I was like, oh, is there an easier way? Is there a more effective way? And that it was an older lady. She didn't mention anything digital. She just said we're gonna call people and we're gonna call them again and we're gonna take them to lunch. And I was like, that does work. I'm not saying it doesn't,
Yeah,
but
it
I
does.
think
It
I
does.
think diversifying, like you said, makes sense because I'm like, okay, I may not be the person that needs to be on the phone.
Mhm.
However, I definitely can do some digital marketing to get some funds. And I love
Yeah.
that you also touched on grants because I know that people want to have grants. They know they're out there, but they're not sure how to kind of sift through and find the right grants for them. And then they don't know the key strategies to get selected for the grants. So, do you have
Yeah.
any insights if someone is thinking or they're maybe in the process of writing some writing grants to
Mhm.
get that grant money? Like, what are some strategies they can put in place to make the odds in their favor?
Sure. So I tell people, especially when you're new and small, start local. So most grant funders fund in the geographic area where they're located. And you also don't realize is that all of the big corporations, and let's talk about banks, let's talk about utility companies, let's talk about just grocery stores, they all have foundations. So you can find many opportunities just by doing a Google search of, put the name of the corporation and the word foundation and find a lot of opportunities that way. And my biggest advice to you is have a clear and compelling story and message. That's how you get noticed in grant applications. But the other piece of it is your visibility matters. Too many people rely on the words and they just lean on that and they just hope a good proposal will get them in. Well, you have to realize there are a lot of nonprofits out here. So everybody's vying for money and the money is there, but how can you stand out from everyone else? So one of the strategies you can use doesn't even involve you writing a proposal. It's how visible you are in the community. Do people know of you? Do people mention you in rooms where you're not in? Do people recommend you for funding? Because minus like the local grants I just talked about, a lot of foundations don't have websites. It's hard to find them. It's hard to know where they are. It's hard to know, like, unless you know the strategies, know like who works for them. So a lot of times they discover you because they find you. So another key strategy that people they miss out on is being more visible online, being visible in their community, showing up to meetings, serving on boards and committees, testifying at hearings, doing thought pieces and think pieces. That kind of stuff matters too when it comes to being noticed.
Wow, that's a gem right there, because I don't think people think about that. They're like, okay, I'm going to, submit myself, complete the proposal to get the grant. Maybe we're going to do some cold calling, maybe some flyers, maybe a GoFundMe, but they're not thinking about the business as a whole and marketing that and showing up as a business and showing what work they're already doing in the community and what services they're providing. So I think that those are really good pieces of advice, because if you're not visible, then, why should I give you this money if somebody else is out here hitting the pavement every day? Then I think they're more likely to get that grant. So do you think that people have to hire someone to write their proposals for grants, or could they do it themselves?
Such a good question. So in the beginning, you do not need a grant writer. And I'm just going to say that again. In the beginning, you do not need a grant writer. You absolutely can write your own grants. You can learn what's needed to put in the applications or in the proposals, and you can actually win. The mistake I see people making is that they automatically assume that grants are the answer for them, so they hire somebody. But you don't realize, first of all, when you're hiring a grant writer, you're hiring them to do work in, to help you put your strategy in place. So they may win and they may not win. But regardless, you have to invest in that person. A lot of people, what they want to do is only pay if the person wins. That's unfair, and you need to pay people for their effort and their time. And in order to pay people for their effort and their time, it's expensive. And they have to keep writing in order to win. And people don't have that money in the beginning to invest in that way. So they get discouraged when they hire these people, and then it's not successful because they think it's the person, when really they have work they need to do as an organization first. So I recommend you get really clear on your why first. Create a budget first. Have your financial statements in order first. Write out your program and your outcomes first. Because when a grant writer comes on board, they're going to ask you for that stuff. And if you don't have it, it just makes the process so much harder. So don't remove yourself from that process. It's really important for you to be able to create those things and be clear on your messaging for your nonprofit first before you start engaging somebody and paying them for that work.
Oh my gosh. Look, somebody got triggered there. I'm sure somebody's like, oh, I have to do work.
I just had to say it. Because I have a Facebook group, and I created it to help people write grants. I created it as a support, but it has grown where there's all these grant writers in there and people just talking about grants. And there are so many people coming and they're just like, I need a grant writer. Can somebody help me? And then when I ask, well, what's the budget? They're like, budget? And I'm like, yeah, you need to pay these people for the work. So I got triggered. I just had to make sure, I said something.
But no, people need to know, because I think, people, first of all, people don't know what they don't know. And I think that sometimes because people's hearts are so invested in nonprofits, they feel like everything should be free. And a grant writer is really a copywriter. And if you've ever tried to hire a copywriter, you know that those skills are not cheap. And
Right.
don't think you're gonna get away with like just AI, because unless you
Yeah.
know how to use AI very effectively, you're still
Mm,
not gonna win. And so you're right, you have to invest in the person, and oftentimes that individual will also be able to let you know what pieces of the puzzle you need to have. Like you
yeah.
said, like, hey, what is the mission? What's the vision? Who are we trying to target? What is our, our calendar for the year? The things we're trying to fund, all these kinds of things.
Yes.
And they may be able to find grant opportunities that you may not even know existed. So
Right.
you invest in the expertise of that individual. And so
Hmm.
yeah, people, they have to know the truth. I get that you're a nonprofit and the children need clothes and the people
Hmm.
need fresh water.
They
Like,
do.
I get
They
it.
do.
But also people have to be compensated for their time and their
Yeah.
expertise. And the cool thing is once you find a great grant writer, right, when they're working with you
Hmm.
and you're having that magic, then you will be able to acquire the funding needed, and then the business
Right.
can grow. But yeah, you have to be willing to pay to play, and that's
Yeah.
just the nature of the business. But I like how you said in the beginning, go ahead and do it yourself, try it out.
You
I
can.
think that's great because you can learn what works, what doesn't, and also the pride you're gonna feel when you do get it. You're
That's
like, hey, I did
right.
that. That's
Yeah.
gonna be great. Well, and I like, tell us the name of the Facebook group, so in case anybody's listening, they want to join.
Sure. It's called the Nonprofit Grant Writing Support Group. If you just search that on Facebook, it'll come up.
And we'll make sure we put the link in the show notes, because I know some people are like, well, I want to be in that group. Yes, but don't go in that group and the first post you put out is like, I need a grant writer.
I will not
Make sure.
approve it. I will not. It won't even
There
get
you
through.
go. Oh, she said, not today, not on my watch.
Yeah, I
But
don't
yeah,
let
make
those
sure
get
you
over.
learn. And
Yeah.
that's the thing too. People have to learn. Like, don't put the cart before the horse. Go in there,
Yeah.
get the information, learn, ask those questions that need to be asked, and make sure that
Hmm.
you have things in place when you are ready to move forward and get the
Right.
support. Because that's what those groups are about. They're not just about a quick solve. Because again, if people are saying, "Hey, hire me for $5 an hour, and I promise you $1 million in grants," like, come on,
You gotta
guys,
wonder. You have to really wonder.
like,
Is
is
this
that too
real?
good to be true?
It is.
Yes, and you're gonna be upset. So definitely,
Yeah.
have some discernment, but go in there knowing that it's gonna take work and it's gonna take time for sure.
Hmm.
So I do want to touch a little bit more. I know we're running out of time here a little bit, but I want to talk to you about if you have any marketing tips and visibility tips for nonprofits, because you mentioned a few already, but I wanted to see if you had any
Hmm.
more to share, just on how, if they don't have a huge following, how can they get the word out about their business?
So, the first thing I recommend people do is understand that you have a perspective or a certain kind of expertise that no one else has. There's a reason why you decided to start this nonprofit. You saw something or you experienced something, and you really need to tap into that because you know it in a way that nobody else does. And if you want somebody to pay attention to you and give you money, then they have to see that you're different. Like, they have to see something that attracts them to you. And the way to attract them and to build that trust is if they see that you know what you're talking about, right? They see that you're an expert. You're sharing something that they didn't realize was happening. So I always tell people, pick a platform, find your expertise, be an expert because you are. And then once you have that core message and that platform you're speaking from, talk about it everywhere you go. So leverage social media. It's free. So if you are not on social media, you need to be. And as a nonprofit, you don't have to go overboard. Facebook is a given because of the fundraising tools. Try Instagram and definitely try LinkedIn. But go on podcasts, like do lives and talk about your experience. Write blogs, write think pieces, like I said before. Let people see that you're talking about something over and over again. So when they think about the issue, they think of you because you want to be established as the go-to in your field. And just like you said earlier about like the woman was saying, call people, those strategies still work. So you do also have to go out into your local community, meet with your churches, meet with the Lions Club, do presentations, talk about the work you're doing. Don't be afraid to speak up and share what you do everywhere you go, because you never know who you're talking to and you never know who's ready to bless you. And I find that a lot of nonprofit founders keep everything to the chest because they're afraid that people will laugh about their mission or won't believe in it, or they'll say no, or they're just like prideful and they're like, I don't need help. I'm not asking for anything. And that's the quickest way to fail. So you have to be open and willing to share your story and to talk about what you do everywhere you go.
Yes, talk up your business, if nothing else. Because if you don't tell anybody about it, it's nobody's fault but yours that nobody knows it exists, and also they're not going to be able to pour into your business if they don't know about it. Right. So we're going to talk up your business, Miss Tiffany Allen. You have a new product coming out. What is it called? Activate Your Purpose. Hold on, let me make sure I got it right. Activate Your Purpose and Profit Society. Tell us a little bit about that.
So it is a membership community specifically for nonprofit founders. And if you're on a board and you're new and you're small and you just cannot get the money that you need to launch. The biggest issue I've seen, like I said before, is people don't have access to financial resources. When you have money, you have the time to think and the time to plan and actually execute. But that's the core problem. People don't know how to get that initial seed funding and then how to replicate that. So I wanted to create a space where that's all we talked about. Because if you find me on YouTube and see all my videos, I talk about a lot of stuff, startup. But in this space, I only wanted to talk about how to get money and what are the different ways you can get money so people can be focused. Because people have families, they have jobs, they got so much going on. This is the time where you can focus. So it is an accountability community. It's a place where people can be seen, because being a nonprofit founder is so isolating. People are so territorial. They won't tell you what to do in the nonprofit space because they think you're going to take their funding from them. So I wanted to create a safe space where you can ask questions, you can get help, you can see other people's wins, all of that in one place. And we can come together and we can grow together. So that is launching March 1st. I'm very, very excited about it because it's just people need help. And people, they just don't know the right strategies, but they have the heart and they have the passion for it. So if we can put those things together, we really can see success.
Yes, that sounds amazing. Like, I might have to slide myself up in there,
yes,
so I can learn a little bit. But if you're interested in joining the Activate Your Purpose and Profit Society, we will have that information in the show notes so that you can definitely stay connected to Miss Allen and learn all those amazing gems. Because we only had a short little bit of time. Like she said, she can talk on this topic for hours and hours. She also has tons of content out there on social media, so definitely check out her social media links as well. But definitely join the group. If you've been saying that this is your year and that you're going to take your nonprofit to the next level, you're going to get that board together, you're going to get the funding that you need to do the things that you have set out as a mission for your business, then this is the time to connect with somebody who can give you those resources. And she has a community of individuals. Like you said, she got grant writer friends, she got all the information. This is the time to make it happen. So I do encourage you, don't let this be the last time you hear her voice. Connect with her. Like I said, social media. Like, if you need to book a call, I'm sure she has a link to get on her calendar. Yes. Now don't be trying to hit her up for free. Y'all know how I feel about that. You know what I'm saying? She got expertise. You're going to have to pay to play, but definitely connect with her, because you can make this year. You can hit those goals that you set for your business. So guys, thank you for coming and listening to another episode of the IROC Business With Confidence podcast. Every single week we drop a new episode where we bring on an expert to talk to you about their expertise and how you can implement strategies today to grow your business. Thank you for listening to this episode, and we will talk to you next time. And that's a wrap on another episode of IROC Business With Confidence podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining our journey into the world of entrepreneurship. If today's episode inspired you or just gave you the tools to tackle your next business challenge, we'd love your support. Please like, share, follow, subscribe, and rate us with a glowing 5 stars. And don't forget to leave us a review. Are you an entrepreneur with a unique perspective, expertise, or actionable strategies that our audience can implement today to advance their entrepreneurial journey? We're always on the lookout for guests who are ready to share their stories and insights. If that's you, please reach out to us. Remember, entrepreneurship isn't just about the destination, it's about the journey. And here at IROC Business With Confidence, we're here to journey with you. Until next time, keep rocking your business with confidence. We can't wait to see where your entrepreneurship journey takes you.